Greg Swann here. I wrote a book called Man Alive, a survival manual for the human mind. I publish a weblog called selfadoration.com, where you can find that book along with other books that I've written, along with a lot of essays that I've written, along with a lot of short stories that I've written, along with a lot of other stuff that I've written. And you can find a compendium of all of these videos that I've produced over the past 6 months. I am playing on my Variax 500 guitar, and I haven't issued this disclaimer lately, so I think I should now. I should caution you in advance that I play the guitar very badly. I play a style of guitar that I call floppy, sloppy, and late, which just means I don't know what I'm doing. I am a tyro, an amateur, a fiddler about, a plunker. Somebody called me a plunker. Said I was plunking on the guitar. I don't find that offensive in any way at all because it's truthful. It's a truthful statement. I never quarrel with the truth. And if you ever catch me quarreling with the truth, I want you to call me on it, because I should either concede right away and yield, or defend my own truth so that you can understand why I think the claim is incorrect. But if you want to make a career out of declaiming that Greg Swann plays the guitar badly, I will be your #1 acolyte. I will support that proposition without reservation, because I know it's true. But it's interesting to me. I like to play this thing. I like to play it. I like to play it when I'm making these videos, because it gives me a way of accompanying myself, and I just like it. I like the sound. This is 145 Blues. We're in G today, which is a very comfortable place to be. There's a whole lot of rock and roll written in the 145 Blues in G, a whole lot of it, because it's so easy. That's why. Bad guitar players forever have made a lot of money playing the 145 Blues in G and E and A. If you take those 3 chord progressions, you probably accounted for about 90% of all rock and roll. No kidding. And the reason is because it's so easy to play. You don't have to be a great musician to be able to make something that sounds like music to the untutored ear. And I've been thinking lately about buskering, playing music on the street. I don't know if I could actually do this. I don't know if I could pull this off. I live in Phoenix. We don't even actually have any outdoor environments where people play music, maybe in Tempe. But I just think it's fun. And, you know, the 145 Blues, you can make street music forever, and people will think it's music, and they will think they are hearing songs, and they don't even know that you're just working through common chord progressions. I can do this stuff in my sleep. I mean, I'm doing it while I'm talking. I could do it with my eyes closed. I'm not looking at my hands at all. You'll see me look at my hands from time to time, but that's really just habit. I don't need to look at my hands to do this. My hands know where to go. Just like driving, just like playing basketball, just like knitting. Anything that you can do with your hands that you get good at, you learn to do kinesthetically, and if you do, then you can just do it. You can just do it, and that's what I like about this. And if you don't care for it, jeepers, I'm sorry. This is going up on YouTube, and there are only about 200 bazillion hours of video on YouTube, so the important thing for you to do is to complain incessantly while you're watching this video rather than switching off to something else. And I don't want you to switch away. I don't. I want to talk to you. I mean, that's why I'm doing this. This is an effort for me. I have to make time for this, and it's a time-consuming process. And making the video is easy because, as you can see, my production factors are outrageously elaborate. I sit on a cell phone, play guitar, looking into my eyesight camera on my Macintosh iBook Pro, or whatever it's called. But after this, I have to render the video and put it up on YouTube, and there's effort to it, and it's not effort-free. I like it. I like to do it in video. This is the sort of stuff that I could do in essays, and I like to write essays, obviously. I've written zillions of them, thousands of them. I've written hundreds of thousands of words in my life, maybe millions of words. And I like to do it. But I think that this is a better way of communicating complex ideas to busy people. And I like to talk about things that are disquieting, uncomfortable making. And it's a way for me to do that in a very intimate and I hope non-threatening way. I don't want to present myself as being some kind of moral exemplar or some cotton mather, judgmental, dominating sort of personality. It's not the way I live at all. It's not my life at all. And I don't ever want to give the impression that I am without sin, because virtually everything I talk about consists of things that I've learned from having discovered mistakes in my own thinking and figuring out how to correct them. And I want to share those discoveries with you so that I know that you're making the same mistakes. I know that you're going through the same shit I am, and I want to help you figure out how to do a better job of avoiding that kind of stuff, how to make the admirable choice at the inflection point when you're at that point where you have to make a choice, to know how to make the admirable choice so that you experience, thrive in a state of continuing self-adoration. A lot of the stuff I talk about consists of dirty words. In our civilization, self-adoration. Adoration is a very religious word. Oro, I beg, I pray in Latin. Oro, orare, oravi, oratum. These are hard things for the English mouth to get around. Oro, I pray, I beg. Ad oro, ad is just intensifying. It's making it even more accusative. It's making it even more active and involved, directly involved. Ad oro. I pray really hard. Adoratum, having prayed really hard. That's where adoration comes from in English. Self-adoration implies narcissism. That's how screwed up our understanding of human nature is that we cannot encounter an idea like self-adoration without immediately switching in our mind to egotism or narcissism. And this is, as far as I'm concerned, those are both expressions of self-loathing. They have nothing to do with self-adoration. They have nothing to do with self-love. Egotism is an outsized display behavior devised to con other people, but primarily to con the actor into believing that he lives in a state of self-love, whereas in fact he lives in a holy terror of self-loathing. And the same thing for narcissism, self-involvement, I believe in putting yourself first in your choices, but that means putting yourself first in the context of a hierarchy of rational values. And if you are in a situation where you have the opportunity to make a choice in such a way that you can advantage yourself to the disadvantage of someone else, someone who is trusting you to be fair, to be just, to be appropriate in your behavior, if you advantage yourself in that circumstance, this is not an expression of self-love. This is an expression of self-contempt. It's an expression of contempt for the idea of justice, of fairness, of probity, of equity. And these are vitally important ideas in a human life. To behave equitably with respect to other people is the essence of trust. I mean, how do you build trust in your relationships with other people? It is by behaving equitably, by behaving fairly, by behaving justly, by behaving admirably. And it doesn't mean admirably to them, it means admirably to yourself. If you can't admire your own behavior, your own past behavior, then what you're doing is you're introducing wounds into your mind. You're introducing scars in your mind because your memories will recall themselves to you again and again and again. Unbidden, you can't control it, you can't cause it to happen, you can't prevent it from happening. Your memories of past evil behavior will recall themselves to your mind, and you cannot escape this. And not only will you suffer the injury of behaving inequitably unjustly and admirably in the instant moment while you're doing it, you will suffer that event again and again and again throughout your life. And the more things you do like that, the more of that kind of suffering that you're going to incur, and in due course, your mind will become your worst enemy. You will have really nothing but miserable experiences with your mind while you are fully conscious, and in consequence, you will pursue unconsciousness. You will drink a lot, take dangerous drugs, engage in really risky behavior, risky sexual behavior. I've talked about risky driving, gambling to massively damaging extents, or possibly you'll just sleep a lot, that you will be so unwilling to deal with your mind while you're fully awake that you won't be awake. You will do anything you can to escape your own past evil. And good grief, this is something to be avoided, is it not? I mean, I don't like talking about the stuff to the left of the zero on the number line. If you read Chapter 7 of Man Alive, I talk about the idea of a number line as a way of understanding your choices, any particular choice at any particular inflection point, but also the ongoing, enduring consequences of your choices through time. And when you do something that results in admiration for yourself, when you choose admirably, when you behave in a way that you can admire, revere, uphold, be proud of, at any particular inflection point, you are moving yourself rightward on that number line. You are moving in the direction of positive integers. And when you behave inadmirably, when you behave contemptibly, when you behave loathsomely, you're moving yourself leftward on that number line. And obviously, any one particular choice is not going to be hugely consequential. I mean, it could be if you're doing something really damaging involving, real injuries to yourself or other people, then you may make a real dramatic difference. Or by contrast, if you're doing something that really does make a huge positive impact on your life, that you took the SATs and did really, really well, or you made a presentation in your class or in your job, and you really kicked out all the stops, you really kicked ass, you could move yourself rightward on the number line a great distance. But typically, most of the choices that you're going to make are relatively small or relatively inconsequential, and so the difference, the added increment in either direction, either plus or minus, is not going to be all that dramatic, but you can make thousands of choices a day. Thousands of choices a day, most of which are completely invisible to other people. Your life is introspective. The reality of your life is that most of the stuff that's going on in your life is completely introspective. In here, no one else can see it, no one else can observe it, no one else can have any opinion about it, and it doesn't make a damn bit of difference what their opinion is anyway. But your opinion matters. Your opinion is everything. Their opinion is nothing. But those choices that you're making are moving you on that number line in one direction or the other, or possibly, a little bit this way, a little bit that way, a little bit this way, a little bit that way, the drunkard's walk. But typically you are deciding in the same direction in most of the choices that you're making, and that means that over time you're either going to move rightward substantially on that number line toward the idea that I call splendor, or you're going to move leftward substantially toward the idea that I call squalor. And these are necessary consequences as a result of the choices that you're making. This is not avoidable. This is not negotiable. This is not something that you can deny. It's not something that you can dismiss from existence by arguing with it or shouting at it. This is the factual nature of the human mind. This is the way your mind really works. And I'm bringing all of this up because I want to talk about an idea that I call ripping off the Band-Aid, and obviously I did not invent that metaphor. It's been around a long, long time. And the argument of ripping off the Band-Aid is, which is a better way to rip off a Band-Aid? Do you take it off slowly and incur pain over a long period of time, kind of a low-grade but continuous pain, or do you just rip the Band-Aid off and suffer a great big pain for a few seconds, and then it's all over with? And, obviously, the argument of that metaphor is just rip off the Band-Aid, get it over with. But my my take on this is a little bit deeper, because you have done things in your life, and again, I'm speaking from personal experience. It's not that I'm reading your mind, I'm reading my mind, and I'm reading it out loud to you. But you have done things in your life that were evil by my standards, and my standard of evil is self-destruction. That whatever happens outside your mind, whoever else is hurt, and other people can be hurt, and that's a bad thing, but the worst thing, much worse thing, is the destruction that you have done to your own ego, the destruction that you've done to your own future self-adoration. And you have done things that are evil. I know you have, because everybody has. And the problem is that many people, most people probably, maybe virtually all people, I'm not an academic, I'm not a taker of surveys, so I don't want to assign a number to this, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's, 95+% of people don't like to admit that the things that they've done in the past are evil. They don't like to admit it. They don't like to acknowledge it. To the contrary, when you bring up something that you can say, okay, this is a categorical evil, there is no circumstance in which this would not be self-destructive behavior, if they've done that thing, they will strive to defend it as virtue, because everything that I do is virtuous. I'm not an evil person, I'm not a bad person, I'm a good person. And therefore, if I did it, it must be good. I call this moving the zero. There's a zero on that number line, right? It's up there on the wall. Look at it. It was in your first grade classroom. You can remember this number line. That's why it's a beautiful metaphor, because it's so easy for everyone to understand. There's a zero on that number line, and everything to the right of that zero is positive values, and everything to the left of that zero is negative values. And the zero itself, I would consider a negative value, because if it ain't positive, it's negative. But an evil action is a self-destructive action, which means it's at the zero or to the left of the zero. And if I say that a particular action is categorically evil, that there cannot possibly be a circumstance where taking this action would result in self-adoration, either in the instant moment or thereafter in the future, and someone has taken that action in the past, many people in that circumstance will be honest. God bless them. They will be honest. They will say, you know what? You're right. I did it. At the time that I did it, I wasn't aware of how much I would regret it, but I've never forgotten it ever since. And I've never stopped regretting it. And that's a good thing. That's really a good thing. That admission is a good thing, because it's the truth. It is the factual truth. But if you cannot abide the idea that your own past actions, whatever, I mean, some of them obviously you'll have no problem admitting, but if there is some class or category of past actions that you've taken that you want to insist that the action was virtuous, even though it has resulted in lifelong regret inside your own mind, that's self-destruction. That's what it is. This is the most common practical consequence of self-destruction, will be lifelong unhappy memories of your own past behavior. Regret, that's what regret is. If you're not prepared, if you're not willing to acknowledge that you behaved in an evil fashion with respect to your own mind, then you're going to try to deny it. You're going to try to reset the zero. You're going to try to move that zero leftward, so that an undeniably negative act is somehow positive in your particular circumstance. This is, I would say that this is the practical expression of moral relativism. Moral relativism is one of those terms that you'll hear all the time, especially from conservatives. And the trouble with their argument is that they want to define morality in such a way that it's external to the mind, and that doesn't mean anything at all. It does not mean anything at all. That you in your own unique particular circumstances, your own unique life, your own unique body and mind, this is the locus of all human morality. You, me, everyone, each one of us has, right up here, our own particular moral lodestone. And that doesn't make morality subjective. in the sense that I get to say what's right or wrong. You don't get to say what's right or wrong. You don't. Your mind will do what it does regardless of what you tell it to do. You don't get to reprogram your mind in such a way that regrets turn into joys. Does not work, does not happen, does not happen. And you don't get to redefine regret in such a way that you dismiss it, even though it really is regret, remorse, sorrow, pain. These things are real, and if you assign a different name to them, came up lately. There are a lot of different ways that this comes up, but it came up lately where it was obvious that the sorrow was just palpable, the pain was palpable, it was outrageous. I mean, it's like, looking at an open wound. And the person who's going through this pain said, "Oh, it's not regret, I'm just second guessing." You have a memory, okay? Any memory. You just imagine yourself having a memory. You have a memory, okay? Now experience that memory. Does it make you happy? Does it leave you feeling delighted? Do you feel elated? Do you feel joyful? Do you really relish living through that memory? Or does it cause you pain? Does it cause you sorrow? Does it cause you grief, agony, remorse, regret? When that memory recalls itself to your mind, as it will come to you unbidden. Do you welcome it? Or do you try to evade it? Do you try to shun it? Do you try to get away from it? And it doesn't really matter what name you give this. It's the experience that you're going through in your mind that matters. And if the experience is negative, it is not a positive memory. And obviously, you're never going to invert the positive memories into negatives. No one would ever do that. But people are always trying to move that zero leftward in order to escape their own past evil. And it doesn't work. It does not work. And here's the worst part about it, is that by constantly trying to do this is cognitive dissonance. And I talk about cognitive dissonance all the time. And frankly, if I'm ever going to write an essay about any of this, I should write an essay about cognitive dissonance, because there's so many different ways that it will show up in your thinking. Cognitive dissonance is simultaneously holding two contradictory premises: 0 equals 1, 6 equals 9, blue equals red, sorrow equals joy. Does not work. It does not work. But the trouble with it is, if you're trying to sustain that state of cognitive dissonance, if you're constantly trying to redefine sorrowful memories into a joyful experience, or try to insist that a negative past action was somehow positive, was somehow beneficial for your self-adoration, if you're insisting on those things, you have to make that insistence constantly. That propaganda is lies, and the only way to sustain a propagandistic argument in your mind is by constantly repeating it. You have to repeat it over and over and over again. Every time your mind calls your attention to the fact that you're telling a lie, you have to shout it down and tell that lie again and again and again. And this is the way that your mind poisons itself. This is the way that you throw away the one unique, irreplaceable human life you can have. You throw it away by constantly telling lies to it. Before you can rip off the Band-Aid, you have to admit that the Band-Aid is there. And as long as you look at a scar, I can't show it to you, but I abraded my arm yesterday. I rode my bicycle for the first time in 2 years. I've been so concerned with making money that I not only don't make any money, I haven't taken anywhere near enough time for looking after my body. So I got on my bicycle yesterday for the first time, and people will tell you that you never forget how to ride a bike, and I will tell you that this is not true. You don't necessarily forget, but you do have to remember But the beautiful thing about riding a bike is you never, ever, ever forget how to fall down. And so I wiped out yesterday, which is pushing it too hard, too far, too fast. And I wiped out and I introduced a brand new injury to my body. And if I insist on looking at that abrasion on my elbow and saying, oh, there's no wound there, there's no scar, there's no blood, there's no scabs, there's no injury, as long as I'm making that factually false, existentially false claim, I can't heal. I mean, in reality, my body will heal anyway. God bless it. This is the beautiful thing about physiology as opposed to mentation. But if I insist in my brain, if I'm looking at a scar and saying, there's no scar there, there's no scar, there's no scar, that's no scar, that wasn't an injury, I didn't suffer an injury, that wasn't an injury, I didn't injure myself, I didn't hurt myself, I didn't damage my life, I didn't permanently alter my skin in such a way that it will never be as perfect as it was before. If I can insist on telling myself that lie, I have to tell myself that lie all the time. I have to consistently tell myself that lie. And practically speaking, I can never heal. I can never get better because the only way I'm ever going to get better is by acknowledging the evil, by acknowledging the damage that I've done to myself. And then, guess what? As soon as I've done that, it's all over. I was talking to Kathleen about this, and all of this comes up. I wrote about sex recently, and I talked about that and how, again, people were unwilling to accept the idea that their own past sexual behavior could have been self-destructive. And so they have to insist that it wasn't, even though, I mean, the evidence abounds. This is not something I have to be like an academic and go around with a magnifying glass looking for clues. The evidence abounds. The hurt that you see in people's faces as a result of their own past outrageously evil, self-destructive behavior in their romantic relationships. I mean, it abounds. You can't look at people's faces without seeing the pain in it. I don't need to be told what put that pain there. I know how the world works. And so if you're going to insist to me, oh no, it was kind of painful at the time, but since I realized it was a growth experience, I'm much happier as a constant. Lying, you are lying, you are lying. And it's okay. I mean, you get to lie. It's not, I told you, I'm not going to judge you, and I'm not some kind of morality cop. I don't get to lock you up for lying. And frankly, I really don't care if you do, except that you cannot heal, you cannot rip off the Band-Aid until you admit that the Band-Aid is there, until you admit that you did act to your own self-destruction. You can't resolve that conflict. And so the other issue was abortion, which I've talked about in the past, and no doubt I'll talk about it again because people really do not want to wrap their minds around this. They really do not want to get used to the idea that abortion is necessarily self-destructive. Having one, doing one, performing one, participating in it either by, funding it or recommending it, encouraging it, politicking for it, being instrumentally involved in an abortion is going to result in lifelong regret. It's unavoidable. This is not an avoidable proposition, and you're not going to be able to say, oh, God, the happiest memory of my life. I mean, second is Disneyland, but first, my abortion. That's when that memory revisits itself. When I think about my abortion, all I can think about is, God, what a pale shadow of joy Disneyland is. Love. Birthday parties. Getting your driver's license. Driving for the first time with your best beloved in the seat beside you. The windows down and the radio up loud. You're looking for happy memories. That's what they look like. Abortion is not one of them, and it never will be. Well, I don't have a happy memory of my abortion, but I don't regret it. It's just that whenever it calls itself to my attention, I wince and try to push it out of my mind right away. That's not regret, though. That's second guessing. That's a lie. That's a lie. You are looking at a scar on your hand, and you're saying, oh, that's not a wound. That's a birthmark. That's a lie. And so I was talking to Kathleen about this, my best beloved, my own best beloved. I love riding with her in the car with the radio up and the windows down. I was talking to her about this, and a way of understanding this that gets abortion off the table, because abortion is, one of the reasons that it's wonderful to talk about it is that it really does separate honest people from liars. But a way of thinking about this that gets abortion off the table is just like this, that you are having a disagreement with a friend, a relative, your brother, your mother, someone that you really like at work, someone that you really like, but you're having a disagreement and the disagreement gets heated, people get angry, and you end up saying things that are really not true and that you really regret. You say, you know, hurtful, hateful things. And then you part company. And the next day that person dies. Hit by a truck, has a heart attack. Brain aneurysm, doesn't really matter. Death, that person dies. And you have this unreconciled, hurtful, hateful stuff that you said. This pain will never go away. This will never go away. But if instead, the two of you get together the next day and you say, listen, I really value our relationship. You're very important to me. And yesterday, I flew off the handle and I said some things that I did not mean and that I deeply regret. And I want to apologize for having said those things. And I want to tell you that I will police myself with the utmost vigilance to make sure that I never, ever, ever do anything like that again, because I don't want to hurt you. You're too important to me. I do not want to say hurtful, hateful things to you, and I'm deeply sorry that I did, and I hope that you can forgive me, and I hope that we can put this behind us. And if you go through that reconciliation, you admitted the evil, you ripped off the Band-Aid, and now it's over. And the reason that abortion is necessarily self-destruction is that kind of reconciliation is never possible. You cannot do it. The baby, not a human, Homo sapiens, not a human until it's 4 or 5 years old, but that baby will recall itself to your memory again and again and again, and you will never ever be able to reconcile that abominable behavior. And it is. It's atrocious behavior. It's the wrong thing to do. It is the wrong thing to do, and I don't really care what the circumstances are. There are all kinds of mitigating circumstances that you could call to your mind in order to try to pretend that a scar is not a scar. But all of them are false, and you know they're false, and that's why you have to recall them to your mind again and again. But what about this? But what about that? What about this? What about that? You cannot ever recover from that, and because you can't recover from it, it will never be gone from your mind. But what you can do, at least, is acknowledge the evil. You can admit that there is a scar. You can admit that there is a Band-Aid. And at that point, you can rip the Band-Aid away. And it will not make the regret go away. That will not happen. The regret will be with you forever. But it will be much easier to live with once you acknowledge the fact of your own life, the fact that you did act willfully, intentionally, voluntarily in self-destruction. That once you acknowledge that, it will be much easier to endure those memories because you will have reconciled your own behavior. You can't reconcile yourself to the baby. You never can. You can't ever do anything to put that right. But at least you can acknowledge in your own mind that you were in the wrong. And once you've done that, you can successfully put it behind you and you can get busy dealing with real life. That if you are insisting on shouting yourself down all the time, you are not getting anything else done. And this is ongoing self-destruction. That's what's funny about it, is you had this one instance of self-destruction, something that really didn't take all that much time, that from preparation to execution to recovery was maybe a week total, maybe less than that. And yet, it's in your mind all the time, and you're constantly having to shout it down all the time. And while you're shouting it down in your mind, you're not doing anything else. You are not pursuing your values. You're not pursuing your goals. You're not pursuing self-adoration. You are not improving your life. You're not getting better. You're not doing anything. You are doing nothing but standing still, arguing with yourself over a matter of undeniable fact. Absolute fact. You acted in self-destruction. This is the respect in which morality is objective. And objective and subjective are very dangerous words because they mean way too many things. But objective in this context means that it's an unavoidable consequence of the way that the universe actually works. That the transit of the stars is an objective fact, and you cannot insist that the moon tomorrow will move in the opposite direction because I want to. That's not going to happen. Many things that human beings can do are not objectively necessary in that way. And this is one of the mistakes that academia insists on making, because academia cannot stand being unable to understand why human beings behave the way they do. Human beings behave the way they do because of father tongue. That's why. Because all organisms are willful to one degree or another, in the sense that their actions are variable, that they are internally variable. The organism can motivate itself toward the food and away from the poison. Paramecia can do this. Amoeba can do this. Your dog, if you doubt that organisms are willful, put your dog on a lead and then expose him to a rabbit or a cat. But human beings have free will. Human beings have fully conscious will, conceptually conscious will. And because of that, much human behavior is variable. And that's why we're having this discussion anyway. That's why we talk about this stuff, is because the only interesting thing in the universe is us. To us, the only interesting thing in the universe is us. And we are interesting because we have free will. And science can't stand, philosophy can't stand the idea of free will because it doesn't fit the rest of the pattern of the universe. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't have to. We are categorically different from everything else. We are. As a matter of, this is a difference of kind and not of degree. We are not extremely elaborately well-defined monkeys. The monkeys cannot do anything that we can do. And if you want proof, go watch a monkey abortion. And go talk to the monkeys about how they feel about it afterward. These things don't happen. There are all kinds of things that we do, that human beings do, that no other organisms can do because they don't have father tongue. They don't have conceptual consciousness. They don't have the ability to apprehend the universe, to sort it into categories, to reason about those categories, and to make informed decisions on the basis of that reasoning. They don't have that ability. And we do. And why do we have it? I will now teach you the three most important words in philosophy, the three most important words of all of human knowledge. If you master these words, you will be so much farther along than anyone else that you know, the most educated, the most brilliant, the greatest genius in all of human history. You will be brighter than that person. You will be smarter than that person. You will know more than that person. You will be able to handle so much more of what you confront in reality just by mastering these three words. The three most important words in human knowledge are, I don't know. Why do human beings have free will? I don't know, and neither do you. Why are human beings so radically different from any other type of organism or entity? I don't know. But we are. This is a matter of clear, undisputable ontological fact. We are radically different from everything else. We have free will. We have conceptual consciousness. We have the ability to reason and choose about the facts of reality in a way that is unique. Nothing else is like this. As far as we know, nothing else is like this. And there's nothing even remotely approaching it, including so-called artificial intelligence. There's nothing like this in any other sort of entity or existent. Why is that so? I don't know. But it is so. And as soon as you're willing to accept the fact that it is so, you can respond accordingly. Again, telling yourself lies, repeatedly telling yourself the most amazingly articulated, outrageously elaborated lies about human nature will not reveal any sort of truth to you. And if you attempt to guide your behavior according to those lies, which of course no one does, but if you attempt to guide your behavior according to those lies, you will make outrageous errors, incredibly self-destructive errors. And in fact, no one does that at all. Everyone who insists that there's no free will is an illusion, there's no such thing as free will, everyone who says that, nevertheless, acts upon free will all the time in their own actions and in their interactions with other people. They do not ever doubt that human beings have free will. They just insist that they doubt it, and that insistence is cognitive dissonance, and it can't result in anything other than error and self-destruction, and it's wholly pointless. It's stupid, literally stupid. Whereas the courageous thing to do in a circumstance where you're confronted by a phenomenon that you cannot deny exists, and yet you don't understand, what's the courageous thing to do? You say, I don't know. Damn, that's interesting. Why should that be the case? I don't know. I might look into it and I might discover something, or I might not. I might not understand this in my lifetime. And, presumably all of this is explicable in one way or another, but it's certainly not explicable to me in any kind of procedural way. I can describe the consequences, I can describe the processes. If you read Man Alive, you'll see me describing the processes that result in free will. But why does it exist? Why it exists physiologically? Because we got this great big thing up here that no other organism has. But why does that thing work the way it does? And how can I explain the functioning of that thing? And, you know, obviously the question for the Frankensteinian scientist would be, how do I duplicate it? I don't know. Can it be duplicated? I don't know. Is there anything in abstract philosophical or scientific theory, medical theory, biomedical theory, is there anything that suggests that this thing can actually be duplicated from scratch? No. None. Artificial intelligence is a joke. And when you read the claims made by artificial intelligence computer scientists, what you're reading are lies, propaganda. Artificial intelligence is canned human intelligence. That's what it is. And then all you're doing is pushing it's turtles all the way down. All you're doing is pushing the problem backward. Why is there human intelligence? I don't know. But canned human intelligence, whether it's in the form of a book or this video or a piece of software, is just canned human intelligence. It is not artificial intelligence. It is not any sort of machine intelligence. Not possible. Doesn't exist. Machine awareness does not exist. A machine is not as smart as you, not as smart as a dog, not as smart as a monkey. A machine is not as smart as a paramecium. Machines are not smart at all. Anything that a machine does that seems to emulate human intelligence is in fact human intelligence. It's canned human intelligence in exactly the same way that the text of a book is canned human intelligence. I want you to be happy. And so, as I said at the start of this movie, I don't love spending so much of my time talking about the left of the zero on the number line. Because all you have to do to get yourself at least to the 0 point is stop lying to yourself. That's all you have to do. That every self-destructive action that you're taking, every instance of cognitive dissonance in your mind, everything that you are doing that is causing you pain, sorrow, misery, regret, all of those things originate in lies that you tell yourself. This is the precedent, the necessary precedent to suffering those kind of fates. And if you want to avoid those fates, all you have to do is stop lying to yourself. But the thing is, virtue is not the absence of vice. The absence of vice is a necessary consequence to virtue. That's absolutely true. You cannot simultaneously achieve self-adoration and self-destruction. You cannot be doing both at the same time. But merely forbearing to engage in self-destruction will not result in self-adoration. Instead, you have to take positive acts. You have to act for your values. You have to pursue your values. And this is the real point of Man Alive, is not how to avoid error, but how to pursue splendor. I encourage you to read this book. Man Alive has been available on selfadoration.com since April 8th, Easter Sunday of 2012. And so take yourself to selfadoration.com and download the book. It's free. I don't charge anything for it. It's available as HTML. You can read it in your browser or as PDF or in ebook or I don't know what iBook store. I don't know what the Apple thing is called, but it's in Kindle and Apple format also. Strictly electronic. If you want it in printed form, you print it out. But it's free. And so, of course, no one has any. no one values it because we are too much monkeys, too much of the time, and the only way we know how to evaluate something is if there's a price on it. Well, this is one of the prices that you have to pay in order to reap the benefits that I'm promising you. Is you have to understand that value and price are two different things, and price very often is not an indicia of value, but to the contrary, it's an indicator of disvalue. It's the most self-destructive things you can buy are often the most expensive. Whereas I'm offering you the most valuable thing that I've ever produced in my mind. The most valuable thing that I can do for you is to share with you how I think and how I achieve splendor in my own life, I don't charge a thing for it. It's free. So go get it. Selfadoration.com. The book is Man Alive, a survival manual for the human mind. If you read, learn, mark, and inwardly digest the philosophical ideas that I'm talking about in that book, it will make a dramatic, remarkable, incomparable change in your life forevermore. You will learn to live a life of splendor. You will learn how, not just how to avoid squalor, not just how to avoid pain, sorrow, regret, but how to pursue joy and how to pursue an illimitable, unlimited, bounteous, infinite joy. And if you do that, you have to live it. You can't just learn it, you have to live it. But if you learn to live it, if you start to live it, if you live it the way that I'm talking about, you could do everyone you love a great big favor by sharing it with them. It's free. Pass it along. Share it with them. And they will learn to love their lives better, and they will become that much more lovable to you as you are becoming that much more lovable to them. And everyone choosing admirably, and this is doable. This is a doable proposition. 7 billion earthlings, 7 billion human beings choosing admirably all the time. And when we get to that point, it will be a completely different world. And so I'm promising to change your life, but I'm also promising to change the whole world forever, for the better, infinitely better. And the price is nothing other than your time and your attention and your work. And the work is hard. I know that. It's not easy. Because you have to not only stop telling yourself lies, you're going to have to tell yourself a lot of painful truths in order to get past your own past self-destruction. But the benefits are unobtainable any other way. There's no way that you can get to the kind of solace of mind, the kind of serenity, the kind of peace and joy and unlimited splendor. There's no way to get to that without that kind of radically uncompromised truth. My name is Greg Swann. You find me at selfadoration.com. The book is Man Alive. I want you to read it. I want you to learn it, live it, love it. And I thank you so much for letting me talk to you this way. And I thank you for letting me invade your memories in this way. The worst thing about listening to me, the best thing about listening to me is that if you listen to me and if you attend to what I say, your life will get better. But the worst thing about listening to me is if you attend to what I say and you don't follow through, I'll be in your head forever. And I know it. I'll be in your head forever. I don't want to be a painful memory for you, but you have to follow through on this stuff. You have to do this stuff. You cannot listen to me and not follow through. Because if you don't, I will become a part of your regrets. And I don't want that. I do not want that. But this is the way your mind works, and there is no escaping it. There is no telling your mind to behave in the way that you want it to. It's going to behave in the way it does, whether you like it or not. And the appropriate thing to, in my mind, the appropriate thing to do is respond accordingly. This is objective reality. This is the way the universe really works. There is no benefit at all in rebelling against it. To the contrary, there is nothing but penalty, nothing but pain from rebelling against it. But if you respond accordingly, if you act upon reality as it really is, there's no limit to the joy that you can attain in your life. And I want you to have it. Bless you. Thank you so much. You have yourself a great day. Have a great week. Have a great life. Thank you for your time.